BBBT also made or published a forecast for our energy consumptions based on its source for the next 30 years. So now they made this forecast based on a model or scenario called BAU, or business as usual, which means that we keep using what we have today and without any interventions of using any new and renewable energy. So we are just doing what we are doing at the moment. And now we can see that annually that the energy consumptions is increasing, except for 2020. Yeah, as we know that we have this COVID pandemic that slowing down anything. It's also having an impact in our annual energy consumptions. However, if we look at the projections made by BPPT based on the BAU scenario, that from now on to the next 30 years, that our energy consumptions annually will increase by 3.5% up to 2050. And in 2050, as we can see here, that BBM or petrol oil are still the main source of our energy consumptions. And annually, the consumptions of BBM will increase by 2.8%. Yeah, this is due to that. Yeah, we can assume that vehicles are still mainly using them and some other sectors that are still using them too. However, if we look at the portions of biodiesel, the thickness of the graph, the color is violet here, it's getting thicker and thicker annually, that by the end of 2050, if we take the average annually, the biodiesel will have an increase or growing number of 4.9% per year, that by 2050 that they will have a higher number than what we have today. This is mainly due to the policy that more vehicle or more systems are using biodiesel or natural-based diesel oil, or a mix of between crude oil-based diesel oil and mixed with the natural source from, let's say, from palm oil and so on. On the other hand, the use of electric power is also increasing, assuming that by 2050 that we have more electric vehicle on the road, then the annual growth of the electric consumptions is by 4.7% until 2050. To have a clearer image of how our energy consumptions based on its resources change from 2019 to 2050, we can see the graph on the left side. This donut chart shown us that, for example, if we take the black part, the LPG consumptions is decreasing by 3% from now to 2050. The biodiesel consumptions is increasing by 2%. The biomass consumption is increasing by 1%. And we can see that the use of BBM or petrol oil are decreasing by 9% in when we compare to our current situations. By 2050, that we only our energy source are only 33% will come from BBM. However, the use of coal will increase by 1%. BPPT said that this is due to by 2050 that there are more electric consumptions that came from coal-based power plant. And we see that gas consumptions also increased by 1%. Then the electric use will increase by 7%. They have the highest growth by 7%. On the right side of the screen is the forecast of energy consumptions up to 2050 by the end-use sector. So let's have a look on the industrial sector. On the blue part of this chart, that we see that the industrial sector will have around 3.9% of annual increase. And by 2050, the main end use sector of our national energy will still be the industrial sector. And the transportation sector, the energy consumption from this sector will increase around 3.2% annually until 2050. And this is mainly due to the amount of vehicles are being used on the road. The commercial sector itself will have a 4.9% annual growth, and the other sector, for example, like the household, will have a growth of 2.9% annually. Now let's have a look on the forecast for each end use sector. So the industrial sector, as the main consumer of our national energy, we see the comparison from year 2019 to 2050 that there will be growth almost 4 times than what we have now. So in 2019, the industrial sectors consume around 389.4 million SBM or BOE, barrel of oil equal. And main source of the energy for the industrial sector are from the coal-based power plant. And then on the second part is gas. And then the third place is the electric. And these numbers, due to the restrictions of using coal that being implied, that we will have 1% less of coal-based power in the industry. However, the electricity consumptions will rise by 4%. On the right hand, on the other hand, on the right side of the screen, we see the household sector. So the household sector mainly consume electricity as their energy consumption. And now we can still see that the household is still using kerosene at home, and we also have gas in the future. But now that we are still using liquid petrol gas or LPG for cooking and so on, and heating, water heating and so on, but the using of LPG will have 30% of decrease by 2050, and we have an increase of using electricity due to we are not using LPG to cook. We can use induction stove, for example, to replace the LPG, and then we start to use more gas in the future. That's the predictions for the household sector. As for the transportation sector, BPPT has 2 models or 2 scenarios. First, the scenarios for business as usual, and the second scenario is based on the involvement of electric vehicle. Now let's see on the left side, where we keep everything as usual. The total energy demand from the transportation sector in 2050 will be around 1.1 or 1,000 million or trillion SPM of energy, and they are mainly will come from diesel fuel, and then gasoline, and then we will have 15% of biodiesel. So we see that in 2019 that 34% of energy source for the transportation sector came from diesel fuel and 50% came from gasoline. And then we have restrictions of using diesel fuel, and then we have more biodiesel being used, that the growth is 6%, and then we have 3% of electric vehicle in 2050 if we keep the business as usual scenario. However, if we take into account the electric vehicle into the projections, instead of having only 3% by 2050, we will have 10% of energy consumptions in transportation sector will come from electric. So it means that we have more electric vehicle on the road by then, based on the model for the EV scenario. However, as we can see that the consumptions of diesel fuel are increased like almost 10%, and due to more electric vehicle on the road, that the gasoline are being less used by them. So a decrease in 30% of gasoline use is converted into electric, more biodiesel, however more diesel fuel. Now let's have a look on the supply side of our energy resources. Now we are looking at the maps of our national crude oil and natural gas reserves across the nations. As we can see here, the green one marks the oil recoverable resources, and the red one is the gas recoverable resources. So it means that they are still can be dig, and mining process can be done in that area. So by looking at this graph, we are still having around 2.5 billion barrel of crude oil reserves and around 50 trillion cubic feet of natural gas reserves. It is also predicted that our crude oil reserves will keep decreasing in a rate of 4.9% annually. It is mainly due to that most of our oil well is getting older